here's my grand theory, if you want my grand theory.
Yeah, go on.
Is you know, we've experienced in the last 10 years a communications revolution in social media and the way we discuss our politics and talk to each other generally through social media. So talking about Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and whatever else it might be. And the problem, particularly with Twitter, is it's a sort of accidental machine for dehumanizing our opponents. Because when you argue with someone on Twitter, you're not arguing with a person sat in front of you. You're arguing with a Twitter handle, and there's this premium on outrage and on hot takes and on knocking people down and ad hominem attacks and all this kind of thing. And I think it's a disaster for arguments. And indeed, to back up my theory on this is the fact that Instagram tends to be nicer. The tone of discussion on Instagram is nicer, and the reason for that is because when you're on Instagram, you actually see a person. That's my theory.
Yeah, it's a good theory. There isn't a lot of the stuff that people are doing. I'm going to be careful here because virtue signaling is the word I'm going to use, but that's now used as a way of insulting someone.
Yeah, sure.
But it's signaling. So I go, if I go on Trump Twitter and go, hey, fuck Trump, it basically says, hey, I'm in your camp over here. I'm
Absolutely.
in this. And if I go, yeah, come on England in the World Cup. Hey, I love the RAF on 100 years. Oh, isn't the Queen great? I'm just telling everybody who I am and what I am.
Yes, you're putting down identity markers.
Yeah. Now, I reckon most of the people who go, fuck Trump, won't have actually thought through the consequences which got Trump into power. He's a reality TV star.
Absolutely.
In power, in the most powerful man in the free world.
Selling his country down the river to the Russians.
Doing, well, whatever he's doing, he basically can say what he likes because he's a better option for many Americans than the other option. So he can do and say, he can lie, he can do. In fact, the more he lies, the more they like him.
Yeah, but then, okay, so then this is the important thing of how do we react to something like Donald Trump or Brexit or whatever it is you might disagree with. The worst thing that you can do is decide that everybody who you disagree with is thick and racist. Yeah. Because if you call a large group of people thick and racist, they're not going to engage with you and your ideas. It's become a slanging match straight away. I think it's absolutely vital that we find ways of discussing on a serious, calm, on a level way with Trump voters. I think it's vital we do that because if your only reaction, and I think the American Democrats are doing a terrible job right now, if your only reaction to people voting for Trump is to go, you'll be on the pale, then they're just going to vote for him again.
Didn't they stitch up Bernie Sanders anyway? I mean, he would have been a good option for them.
I would certainly have preferred him to Donald Trump. The interesting thing about Bernie Sanders for me, I have some friends who are like lifelong Democratic activists in the States, and they really don't like Bernie Sanders because he wasn't a Democrat until 6 months before he joined the primary. He sort of swanned into a party that has its structures, tried to sort of essentially hostile take it over, like failed, and then stormed out in a huff, kind of going, well, the Democrat Party's a stitch-up. And my friend Steve, who's been a door-knocking Democrat activist for his entire life in Phoenix, Arizona, is kind of like, fuck that guy. Do you know what I mean? Where were you in the 96 election or whatever? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I suppose so. Yeah,
that's an angle.
Don't you think it's weird though that I feel this about I've got twin daughters who are 16 and very politically engaged, and they talk a lot about American politics. They talk more about American politics than they do British politics. I think. And I think the one thing Trump has actually done, which is interesting, maybe Obama started it. They've put American politics on the map, and they seem to be dictating to the rest of the world what we're talking about, which is also very surreal.
Yeah, I do. I mean, obviously America is the world's superpower, so I think occasionally I run into Americans who are kind of like, well, why the fuck has an English person got an interest about this anyway? And I'm like, because you're the world's superpower. Of course I've got an opinion about it. Of course everybody does. I mean, take it as a compliment. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, but yeah, I do know what you mean. I think that the other thing is that right now, particularly, and I'm sort of guilty of this myself completely, American politics is easy to discuss because it's more cut and dried. Do you know what I mean? It's just kind of easy. Trump is just profoundly awful.
But interesting.
But yeah, fascinating.
Interesting. I always think, and I like to have this conversation with people, what is the future with Trump there? Because I met some futurists years ago, I did some mini documentaries. Yeah. And a couple of the futurists said, in the future, we're not going to regard politicians. This is about 3 or 4 years ago, that highly. We'll have businessmen take over. And it was proven massively with Donald Trump. Yeah. Do you think this is a new way? We're in a situation with Brexit now where we need a really strong leader. Yes. And we haven't got that really at the moment.
Or just a competent leader.
Maybe, yeah.
That'd do. I'd start with that.
Exactly. And we're looking around at our British politics, and it doesn't matter what side you're on at the moment, you're looking and going, hold on a second,
Well,
Corbyn can't lead his party very well.
yeah,
May can't lead hers. It's a disaster.
That's a whole separate issue, which I think is really, and I have no idea what the answer to this is, but I think if you look at the kind of people who are at the forefront in politics, both in Britain and the USA, there's clearly something not working in the system if these are the people who can rise to the top of our politics. Because I think that across the board, they're pretty shabby.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And whatever else you might think of, for example, I was thinking about this the other day, May versus Corbyn on the one hand, and then, like, let's say Attlee versus Churchill in 45. I happen to be reading Attlee's biography right now, so I'm thinking about this. But there was an intellectual heft and a moral heft to those arguments, which is utterly lacking today. And I don't quite know why that is, but somewhere in the sort of conveyor belt that's supposed to somehow from our society draw out the leaders and the best among us to lead us isn't working right now. Because if the best the Conservatives have to offer the country is Theresa May, there's something, or indeed Boris fucking Johnson, there's something wrong with that.
Is it also the fault of the media? Because the way we're having a long form conversation here, you could quite easily have had this for 8 minutes on a TV show, Sunday Brunch or something. Not that we would talk politics particularly, but you do that and you start to, and we can just take a little snippet of it and then go, oh, he's left wing or he's right wing or he's anti-Brexit or whatever you can take. And do you not think
the pull quote or the Trump of whatever it was? I'm
not
going to say it because then you're going to pull quote.
The Trump of rock and roll.
Yes.
But I interviewed Harriet Harman on this podcast, and what I found really bizarre is she just kept talking. She was waiting for me to interrupt her, and I wasn't going to. I've got as much time as she wants. And actually, she had to get to PMQs, otherwise I'd gone on for about 2.5, 3 hours. Similarly with Alistair Campbell. They're so used to someone interrupting them and going, but what about this? And I was like, actually, do you know what? I'm just going to listen to your ideas because I like listening to ideas. And she's really a very interesting woman who's done a lot.
One thing I do think that comes from media and indeed social media is just that, like, in my very limited experience of meeting politicians and talking to them, 99 times out of 100, they give you much more pause for thought and interest if you actually engage them in a conversation one-on-one and give them a bit of time to talk. Because obviously they've got ideas, otherwise they wouldn't be in politics, they wouldn't have got to where they are.